So on the very next day, 10th October at 8:30 a.m., we see that the whole team, comprising of the 5 members, they start their investigation on a six-seater helicopter across the Taklamakan Desert. So from that high altitude, they could see the major towns of China like Khotan, Kashgar, Cherchen, Aksu, all those different places, water bodies, oases, the inhabitants of Xinjiang province, uh, everything. They could see it from above. And Dr. Sheng, he was going on describing the regions visible below, and he was sharing with them the ancient history of that area. That area was called the Chino Turkestan area. So he was describing to them everything. So during this expedition, Professor Shonku felt very confident, very excited. Not only him, but the others in the team as well. Except Nakur Babu, he was a bit down, uh, and so uh, Professor Shonku gave him a dose of uh, medicine that was invented by Shonku himself. The name of that medicine is Cerebrilliant. 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 That is a medicine that he himself invented. So he gives a dose of that medicine to Nakur Babu. And this helicopter had a pilot as well. He was a Chinese pilot. His name was Sushi. Sushi. Now, during their helicopter ride, they could spot the potential landing site of the UFO. So they decides to land there. That is what happens on 10th October morning. On that same day evening by 4:30 p.m., they land the helicopter on the desert, and they pitch 3 plastic tents. Now, the place where they landed their helicopter, that was a low, stony hilled place. They were surrounded by hills on 3 sides, very short hills. So the team is equipped with weapons and everything. So they decide to wait because the place where they have landed their helicopter, next to that they have found a spot which they speculated to be the potential landing site of the UFO. So they think that it will come again. So they decide to wait with all these weapons, and Saunders tell them that as soon as such a thing happens to come near us, we will destroy them. Because they have destroyed all our important monuments, the embodiments of human civilization. So as soon as such a thing appears, we will destroy them. So they have enough and more weapons with them, and especially there is a gun invented by Professor Shonku. Its name is Annihilin gun, and it had the capacity to destroy any alien spaceship. So Kroll and Saunders were especially ready for any sort of attack. So even though there were a lot of confusion at first, they finally sort out everything, and Professor Shonku was so excited about the mission, and he feels that this is a unique opportunity to meet the inhabitants of an alien planet and everything. So that was a lifetime, one in a lifetime opportunity, according to Shonku, for which they have to make the best use of. And again you see that Nagur Chandra Bishwas, he was a bit distracted. He was just blurting out some things. He was just speaking in a very crazy way. And Shonku gave him another dose of Cerebrilliant, and he became normalized. Okay, he became silent. And to their surprise, after some time, the actual UFO flies in. And they hide behind those hills to escape from any immediate attack. All the crew members, they hide behind the hills and they just watch. So this is what we see on 10th October. Next, we see the next day, 11 October. It is 9 p.m. night. Okay. So in on this day, Shonku tells us all the dramatic events that happened that day, and he says that they saw a spaceship, an aircraft that landed uh, over there. All of them were hiding. Just then, a door at the end of the aircraft opened and a ladder was lowered. Okay, there was nothing, no noise, nobody came out of that aircraft. Everything was still and silent. So they watched over it for some time, and when they found that there was nothing uh, dangerous, uh, all of them decided to climb up, because at least if they have to see any aliens, they have to go inside the UFO. So they decided to make use of that opportunity, and they all five of them climbed up, and they reached inside the UFO. Just as they reached the UFO, what happened? They just as they entered the UFO, what happened? The door closed. Okay, so they were imprisoned inside the spacecraft. They did not know what to do. They did not know how long they stayed there, because there was no clock or anything to know about the time, because once you are inside that aircraft, you cannot see daylight as well. You cannot see what time is there is you cannot see the sun or the moon, or you cannot see anything from inside. So they were surprised, they were baffled, confused. They were even very scared. They felt as if they were trapped. So they stayed there for a long time. And to their surprise, what happened? They heard a human voice inside the UFO. The rest of the events is described on the next day, on 12th October, by 6 p.m. Okay, and on that day, Shonku narrates that the human voice, it asked them to surrender all their weapons. Okay, so Kroll and Saunders, both these men were a bit hot tempered. So they hesitated to obey the orders of the voice. Kroll said that it is actually a human voice, so we needn't worry about them. If it is an alien, we cannot predict how they would react or how they would behave. So we need to be cautious if it was an alien. But if it is a human, we needn't uh, be scared. So they were at first hesitant to obey the orders of the voice. Suddenly, what happened? The complete atmosphere inside the UFO changed. When they disobeyed the voice, everything changed, and it became very difficult for them to breathe. They started suffocating. They started coughing, and they were gasping for breath. Okay, and finally they surrendered. They just put down all their weapons, and after some time the atmosphere came back to normal, and soon a door slid open and a person emerged, and all of them, they were shocked to see the person standing before them. And it was the Italian physicist, the Milan based physicist, Dr. Rodolfo Carboni. So, Professor Shonku already knew him. Even Saunders, Jeremy Saunders, and Kroll, they all are acquainted with him. So, Carboni explains to them that how he happened to be in charge of the spacecraft. And he tells them that the spacecraft actually belonged to aliens, and these were a group of aliens with whom he had established radio contact 15 years ago. Maybe these are the same aliens with whom Professor Shonku had also established contact. But Shonku had left his research midway. He did not continue it. And the reason you know. So he says that I had established radio contact with them 15 years ago, and these aliens inhabited a planet which was revolving around the Alpha Centauri. And Alpha Centauri is the closest star system or the closest planetary system to Earth's solar system. Okay, and so they belong to a planet near the Alpha Centauri. So during their contact through radio, uh, when he established that radio contact with them, they had already informed him about their arrival. And Jeremy Saunders and Kroll and Shonku are so excited, and they ask him queries about how he happened to contact them and what sort of language they used while communication and etc. And uh, Carboni tells them that he used mathematical language and later sign language. But unfortunately, what happened? When the aliens reached Earth, they died out of influenza. They couldn't adapt to the climatic conditions of Earth. So they caught some disease, influenza fever, and they all died. And it is in this way that Carboni came in charge of that aircraft. So the valuable aircraft was left to the hands of Carboni. And we see that after some time, um, all of them have a sort of friendly talk with each other, and the expedition team is quite curious to know about the UFO, how it is working and everything. And Carboni takes them to the control room, and he shows how to operate the UFO. He shows especially Shonku how to operate the UFO. And inside the UFO, they see that there was a robot inside the UFO, but it was not working. It is dormant now. And Carboni reveals that he has plans to travel to space using the UFO, and that he says that he has lost all his interest in staying on Earth. Okay, and Carboni becomes a bit too personal while he is talking to Shonku. He reveals that some tragic incidents has happened in his life, and that has changed him completely. He was a very sincere man once upon a time, but then several tragic events happened in his life. Like initially, he was a good architect, but many people, many of his enemies, they conspired against him, and he had to give up his profession. So he was uh, given a wonderful proposal to build the Turin Stadium, and the stadium was constructed according to Carboni's design. But some of his enemies, some corrupt architects, they damaged the design. They created some errors in that, and finally the inspection team found some very serious complaints in its construction, and Carboni's design was rejected. Okay, and his whole reputation was ruined. The entire blame fell on him. So this is an incident that greatly transformed him, and so he wanted to take revenge. He was like, he hated the whole human civilization. He felt that the whole human race are corrupt, and they are greedy, and they cheat people, they are treacherous, and etc. So it is when he failed in his profession as an architect that he took up he became a physicist, he became a scientist. Okay, and when he got control of the UFO, he decided to take revenge. And he admits that it was he who destroyed the Parthenon, the Eiffel Tower, and the Angkor Wat. And everybody was so shocked to hear that. They couldn't believe it. And so while they were talking, Carboni started the engine and the spacecraft started flying. Okay, and it crossed the mountain range of Alps and started descending. It reached Europe. And they could see that the UFO hovered over the St. Peter's Basilica in Rome, and within a few seconds it was destroyed by Carboni. Okay, and now they all realize that Carboni, because of his obsession to take revenge, he has become a madman, a lunatic, a crazy man. He is capable of doing any dangerous act. He is capable of doing any sort of destruction to the whole humanity. So, after destroying St. Peter's Basilica, Carboni turns the aircraft towards India. Now, his next target was the Taj Mahal in India. And the aircraft very soon it reached the location of the Taj Mahal, and it was around 12:45 a.m. midnight. And the whole crew, they were so shocked and devastated. They didn't know how to control this madman. They were helpless because they tried to convince him, but that was pointless. He was not getting convinced. And Professor Shonku, he felt that he couldn't bear to witness the destruction of the Taj Mahal. Okay, and just then Nagur Chandra Bishwas, who was remaining silent all these times, he started using his psychic powers, his superpowers. And with this power, he imagined the era in which the Taj Mahal was under construction. Okay, so he imagined a time in which the Taj Mahal was under construction. Okay, and with his powers, he also made the others around him feel the same. So everybody felt that the Taj Mahal is just getting constructed. They, the memory of the Taj Mahal as a beautiful monument, that was wiped from their memory, and it was just a building under construction. Okay, and even Carboni started feeling the same. He also experienced the same, and he was totally confused and he was surprised. And the aircraft itself seemed to be in some other ancient era. And so Carboni, he approached Shonku and he asked what's happening. And Shonku told that he tried to mislead him, and he told that it was the UFO which had taken them to another era. The UFO was actually time traveling to the past. So Shonku told him that this is what is happening. The UFO is making us feel all this, etc. Okay, and Carboni, he went back to the control room. The crew also followed him, and there was a huge fight between Saunders and Kroll and Carboni. Kroll and Saunders were mounting on upon Carboni, and they were trying to stop him from doing any further destruction. Suddenly, Carboni, uh, in that fight, in that hustle and bustle, Carboni fell upon the control panel and he hit upon a big yellow button. Okay, and soon the robot which was lying dormant over there, it was turned on. It came near Carboni, and with its metallic fist, with its metallic arms, it clasped around his neck. And after 1 minute, everything was over. Carboni was killed by the robot. His lifeless body fell upon the floor. And now the robot took control of the spacecraft. and took the flight back to the Taklamakan desert, where the journey began. And all of them um, came out of the aircraft and they boarded their helicopter. And by the time the UFO, which was controlled by the a robot, it went back to the skies. So this is the story of Professor Shonku and the UFO, a very interesting story. And like this, we have so many stories. I mean, in the collection of Satyajit Ray, it is just one story which is prescribed to you, and it has been adapted into films, cartoons, etc. You can see Professor Shonku stories in YouTube, I think. So if you get time, please do watch at least one or two. You will, it will be so interesting. So one thing we have to notice that that the science fiction element, and it was written during the 1961, and you know that the science fiction films that we see now, that Steven Spielberg's E.T., Extraterrestrial, then Alien Covenant, Beyond, Skyline. So many films are there which depict the aliens, how they come to uh, Earth and how they destroy. But what you have to see here is, it is not an alien which is trying to destroy Earth. It is human. Carboni, he's a scientist, and it was he who was trying to create havoc on the Earth. And it was due to his personal reason. He had personal reasons for taking vengeance. So this brings out a moral that science is something which has always been tended to use for the benefit of humanity. But again, as the two sides of a coin, you have the flip side as well, you have the other side as well. Science has always, by many scientists, have used it, has have misused it, like nuclear weapons, or creating poisonous gases, killing people, torturing people. All this have happened throughout history. Science have, like, creating viruses, man-made viruses, that harm the health of humanity. All these things happen in history. So it is such an element that how science can be misused by man. It is such an element, that it is such a moral that Satyajit Ray very amusingly tries to convey through his stories. Okay. And this Professor Shonku, and even all the other characters like Wilhelm Kroll, Jeremy Saunders, and Nagur Chandra Bishwas, all these characters are created with so full of life that we can see them in our minds. Okay, so hope you all understood the story and you found it interesting. Now I want all of you, my kids, to read that story. I have posted it in our classroom, and so I want all of you to go through that story. What I have just mentioned here is just a summary. If you need to have a clear idea, please go through that story, and along with that, this presentation will also help you. So, thank you. Have a nice day.